Thad with Willoway. We're here. We started our digging for the B&B in the spring here, and we're hot at it. So if you got your orders in, great. They should be getting ready to process and go to you. If you haven't ordered yet, there's still time. So we're going to talk a little bit about the process. Okay, so the spade is around the tree right now, and then he puts the blades in with much down pressure so he gets a nice consistent dig, and we get all the roots. The size of the tree dictates the size of the basket. You can see he lifted it out. They'll check to see if there's any roots that are hanging out. They shave a little bit off the bottom. You've got a nice sandy loam. And he brings it over to the basket now. The basket setter will hold the tree as he pulls the blades out. Sometimes he has to help so we make sure that we don't get any of the blades, the soil does not stick to them. Now you can see they're coming over here. The guys that are doing the top tying, they'll shave a little bit off the edges or the hips of the ball, and then they put fertilizer on it as the top dress. And then they'll bring the burlap up now. They're cutting slits so that they can tie the tops. See, they put it around the trunk. They'll tie across. There's lots of different ways that people will fasten. Used to be a lot of balling nails or hog rings were used, but the balling nails would fall out and then you have a lot of flat tires, so a lot of people moved away from that. This makes a nice package. Also, we don't have any twine. There'll be twine that'll be going on the top of that as well to hold married wire to the basket. So this group behind us doing that. Tying, star tying is what's called. He'll tie it into the basket. What this does is help make sure that the wire gets tight to the, holds the whole root soil package together. This is probably the most important step in the whole process of balling, and make sure that you got a great, holds the trunk in so it doesn't wiggle around, break the roots up. And also it helps with just making sure that the whole, you don't get cracking in the ball and that everything's really tight. They'll come in here and they'll use a crimping bar. That's the next step after this, and tighten it even further so that there's less. That helps with reducing the transplant shock. You can see it's quite a process. This also helps to make sure, if it's done right, that you don't get the soil to bubble up and cause the plant to be too deep in the soil. So it keeps the soil level the same. So that's why you saw when they're shaving it, they plant it right in the field, and then when you get this process of this, you shouldn't get any lift in the ball either. So it helps with just the transplant and planting it correctly at the next location. Hi, it's Thad with Willoway. I wanted to talk a little bit about why we have some houses that are covered, as you can see beyond, and why some are empty. This has malice. This is Malice Royal Raindrops crabapple. So it's a really nice plant. I consider it a little bit of an improvement over like what everybody knows, the prairie fire. So it's got that deep, dark foliage to it. It's got a nice dark pink flower, persistent fruit, a deep, dark fruit, smaller in stature. A lot of people also have the stigma that crab apples have a lot of suckering. There's new rootstock that's being used besides the old doglow. So Sprout Free is one of them. So there's a lot of different rootstocks that are used, so you don't get the root suckering that you used to get off the old varieties, if that's something you're worried about. The other thing is it's a really nice head. It naturally develops a nice upright oval shape to it, and it's kind of broad in that sense. So form and structure. Birds eat the fruit once they get a little farther along, but it's fairly small and hard, so it's not a messy fruit, and you get a nice long bloom time. Hi, we're inside one of our bunker houses. This is where we put the bunker plastic on the outside. It's white on the inside and outside. There's a black in there, I should say, in between, and basically creates this dark atmosphere that we're in. These are on prunus. They're cherries in here. And we do this very specifically. We're trying to hold these back because prunus wants to get going very early in the season. And what happens is they almost come out too early. They flower, and before we even get it freezes, and then you'll have a lot of loss or some dieback in them. So all of ours, we pull plastic over it here in the winter, We've just pulled that off. We kind of hit a flip-flop last week here in Avon. We're at 46-degree growing days right now. So we had a flip right in there where we had to pull it off to cool them down. Right now we have the doors closed because this weekend it was cooler. So, and then we last night got down to like 31. So we let the cold come in and then we close it up during the day to keep that cold in here. And you can see the buds, hard to see from the camera, but the buds are still tight, really not showing a lot of green yet, which is exactly what we want to do with these. There'll be a point when they start pushing some green out. We'll have to get in here, we'll have to stand these up. But if you ordered them now and got them, they're still shippable and could be out in a yard where once they get a little further along, you may have to protect them from frost if it's in your yard. Hey, wanted to talk a little bit about phenology. We're starting to get enough degree days. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in the last part, we have 46 degrees days here at Avon. A lot of that came when we had the warmer weather. We've hit some nights where days it's got to 60, and nighttime temperatures were in the 40s. So it helps us build up some degree days because we went from basically none up to 46. So there's indicator plants, and we're in our phenology garden here at Willoway, and wanted to talk a little bit about it. So behind me here is Gold Tide Forsythia. Forsythia is an indicator plant. So an indicator plants are plants we use to time growing degree days to them. And so Gold Tide here is at 40 or 50 to growing degree days. Forsythia is considered in bloom. So you can see there's a lot of blooms that are just getting ready to open up here. So we're right in that timing. Some other plants would be silver maple in full bloom at like 42 to growing degree days. So that's another indicator plant. Cornus moss, which we'll take a picture of a little bit later here in the video, is in bloom as well. So that's starting to come out. So all those types of plants you can use for this type of degree days, and we'll talk about those indicator plants as we do the videos this year and kind of tie the two together. All right, so we've moved over here. This is Cornus moss, tree form. You can see it's in full bloom right now, or coming out in bloom, I guess I should say. This is another indicator plant. Why indicator plants are important to us in growing degree days. We do a lot of our sprays at the nursery and scouting for pests based on growing degree days. So we can kind of get a forecast and get ahead of some of these things for like say an insect, the emergence of like a scale when they're in the crawler stage or vulnerable. So Mother Nature kind of helps us along when we tie plants in with the growing degree days. We get a better understanding of where the pests are at.